What if the voice that you've been listening your whole life is the very voice the world needs to hear? What if the difference isn't a deficit, but it is your superpower? Well, hey, my beautiful people, welcome back to the Season of Self-Love Podcast. It's your girl, the goddess Nyomi, and I am so glad that you are here with me on this Wisdom Wednesday. Well, this March, we are exploring reclaiming your boundaries, and that means not just saying no to others, but saying no to shame, silence, and self-doubt. Well, today's guest is Russell Van Brocklen, and he is a champion for shame-free learning, self-acceptance, and helping people to reclaim their voice even when the world is tired or try to silence them. Because here's the thing, y'all. The world will try to make you small, and the world will try to fit you into a box. But reclaiming your boundaries means saying, I refuse to shrink. I refuse to be ashamed, because this is who I am. So let me welcome you properly to the show. Welcome to the Season of Self-Love Podcast, the season of healing intentionally. I am your host, Nyomi, and I am so glad that you are here. This season, we are slowing down to go deeper. Every Monday and Wednesday, we're creating a space of intentional healing, authentic conversations, and the kind of self-love that transforms from the inside out. This podcast is brought to you by Ask Nyomi and Elevate Me Self-Discovery, where we believe that loving yourself intentionally is the foundation of true transformation. So whether you're on your own journey of rebirth, navigating life transitions, or simply choosing yourself, this is your safe space. So get comfy, grab your favorite beverage, and let's heal together intentionally, because you deserve to embrace that beautiful person that you are. Now let's get started. All right, my beautiful people. Well, today I am joined by Russell Van Brocklen. He is an educator, advocate, and someone who has turned his own journey from dyslexia into a mission to empower others. Russell's story is about breaking cycles of shame and finding your true voice and building boundaries that honor his unique gifts. Well, Russell, welcome to the Season of Self-Love. I am so very grateful that you are here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so before we dive into this conversation about boundaries and shame-free learning and finding your voice, we're going to do what we always do here on the Season of Self-Love, is that we ground ourselves with a 60-second guided meditation just to set the intentions for the conversation. So wherever you are right now, if you would just take a moment just to close your eyes if you can and just get comfortable, all right? All right, my beautiful souls, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I want you to just pause with me for a moment. I want you to put both feet on the floor, and I want you to relax your shoulders and take a deep breath in through your nose and slowly release through your mouth. Now I want you to place one hand onto your heart. And now I want you to say quietly to yourself, and I want you to repeat after me, I am enough exactly as I am. Now inhale, exhale. Now say quietly to yourself, I release shame. I release the need to prove myself. I release the voice that says I'm not enough. Now one more breath in, release. Now say, my differences are my gifts. My voice matters. I am worthy of taking up space. I am reclaimed, and I am unashamed. And when you are ready, gently open your eyes. All right, my beautiful people. And if you are new here to the Season of Self-Love podcast, it's something we do every episode just to help, again, ground us before we get into the topic at hand. All right, Russell. So let's dive right in with, this month of March is our theme is reclaiming your boundaries. And so I want to start by asking you, what does reclaiming your boundaries mean to you, especially for someone who's faced shame and learning differences?
Well, the main thing that you need to understand about dyslexia is that there is an inherent conflict between how people like me and how my brain works and how most people's brains works going through school. So it's not that schools are trying to make it difficult on neurodiverse people, but I think we need to look at the science. This is the top book in my field called Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Yale, second edition. She's a medical doctor. Here's the brain scans of dyslexia. Do you see how the back part of your brain have just this massive neural activity? Okay, and you see how the back part of mine has next to nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the front part of my brain, do you see how that's about 2.5 times the neural activity?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the problem. So in kindergarten through high school, what we're learning, if you remember, let's just take English class, for example. Do you remember back in school, you would have book after book after book you were learning in English class?
Mm-hmm.
And you were learning to read. Well, all that's the back part of the brain. The dyslexic student has essentially nothing going on back there. So we're learning very slowly. The teachers are telling us the same thing over and over again. We can't remember it. And it's causing just an incredible amount of stress. The kids get bullied, and it's absolutely horrendous. But the solution is really quite simple. It's to take what's not going on in the back part of the brain and moving it forward to the front part of the brain where we have 2.5 times the neural activity. And according to Yale, that deals in two areas: word analysis followed by articulation. So when you're working with dyslexic kids, that's what you want to do initially, is focus on this area. And the biggest issue that your listeners are going to run into is typically when the kids are in elementary school, they're having trouble reading, and they're essentially writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words. The teachers don't know what to do. The special ed teachers don't know what to do. The school psychologist has no idea. And the parents and the kids are getting frustrated as the kid is being socially promoted each year and falling further and further behind. So my solution is simply to tell the parents, it's just a lot easier just to fix this yourself. And that's what I'd like to do initially, is just to show your listeners how to solve this most critical problem. Just before I get to start to show you, because it just takes a few minutes. Do you know any dyslexic elementary school kid at any point in your life pretty well, or not really?
And no, I do not.
Okay. So the example I want to give you, her name is Sarah. When I was working with her, she was 10 years old, in fifth grade, reading and writing at the second grade level, and writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words. Her parents wanted to stop that, and they wanted to see an initial improvement in her reading level. Now, at that point, what the millionaires would do is to go to school like the Windward School in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. They have a 98% success rate. They take students in, work with them, then send them back with the best education you'd find anywhere in the world to their original school. It takes about 4 to 5 years at $75,000 a year just in tuition to do that, because the student to teacher ratio runs about 4 to 1. To learn that approach, it's a bachelor's degree plus 2 years and $11,000 to a non-for-profit. And I'm going to show you how to do the first part in the next couple of minutes, because I'm using modern neuroscience, and they're using stuff that hasn't changed much since the 1950s. So you ready?
Go ahead. It's your show. Go ahead.
Okay. So I want to just assume that you're going to be teaching Sarah. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull out a laptop computer with a real keyboard, not an iPad, not an iPhone, and certainly not handwriting. And what you're going to do is you're going to type out hero +, what are we talking about? And then you're going to have Sarah copy that. And I could hear the parents screaming now. But we can't copy. We're told not to. Actually, you can. Professor James Collins, Strategies for Struggling Writers, Default Writing Strategy of Copying. So she copies that. Then we're going to replace hero with Sarah's name. So now we got Sarah +, what are we talking about? Then we're going to go to a list of 10 things that Sarah really, really likes and 10 things she really, really hates. The first thing she really, really likes is swimming. She's on the swim team. She gets in the pool every chance she can get. So we're going to replace what are we talking about with the first thing on that list that she really, really likes, which is swimming. So we go Sarah +, what are we talking about? We swap that out for Sarah +, swimming. Do you see how we got there?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I'm going to try to fool you with two of the simplest questions you will ever be asked. And the answers are very direct and extremely simple. Do you think I'll be able to fool you?
Probably.
Okay. Well, if you answer it exactly, this works. If you don't, it doesn't work. And after I explain what's going on, people tend to have an epiphany on what dyslexia really is. This is the big aha moments for your listeners. So we got Sarah +, swimming. We have to replace the + with a word. Here's my question. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
So we have to put a +.
Nope, we got Sarah + swimming. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to, swimming is Sarah's favorite thing to do in the world. She's on the swim team, jumps in the pool every chance she can get. We have to replace the + with a word so we have a proper 3-word sentence. So we got Sarah + swimming. We got to replace the +. Here's my question. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Sarah likes swimming.
Yes, but that's not what I asked.
She likes.
Yeah, but that's not what I asked.
What did you ask? The plus? You asked the like? What did
No,
I miss?
here's remember what I said. We have to be exactly precise. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Like.
That's good. Fantastic. Now exchange the + for that word. What's the 3-word sentence?
Sarah likes swimming.
But that's not what I asked.
You said say the 3-word sentence.
Do I have you nice and confused right now?
Yeah, you do. You had me from the beginning with the question that I asked you that you did not answer. So you had me confused from the beginning.
Okay. Are you ready for your epiphany?
Yes, what's my epiphany?
Okay. Well, remember when I asked does Sarah like or dislike swimming? What you did initially is what just about every educated person does. When you put it in the sentence, you added the S to make it a proper sentence. Sarah's
Oh,
dyslexic. She doesn't know how to add the S.
yes, got
So
you.
when I came back the second time, I said, does she like or dislike? You said like, which is correct. And then when you put it in the sentence, you automatically added the S.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Here's the science again. You're doing this in the back part of the brain. You do this automatically. Sarah's got nothing going on back here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not working.
Yeah.
So we don't want to send her to that $75,000 a year school for the next 4 to 5 years.
Right.
We have to take the stuff that's not working back here and move it up here where we got 2.5 times the neural activity.
Right.
Okay. So how we do that, because it's right there in Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz, who's a Yale medical doctor. That's the top book in my field, is it's word analysis followed by articulation. So what we do to fix that is because Sarah would go like, and she would write Sarah like swimming. How do we get her to add the S? I would simply ask Sarah, read what you wrote out loud. Does it sound generally correct? And she's going to say no. And I'm going to say, fix it. Sarah likes swimming. Now, because we need to move it from the back part of the brain to the front part, and the front part is just massive chaos. Things are jumping around light speed with just no organization whatsoever. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to practice that with 10 likes. We have to practice that 10 times with 10 likes and 10 dislikes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you see how like and dislike is an extraordinarily simple form of word analysis?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now next we have to do articulation. Then we're going to add because and then reason one. Do you see how the reasons are a simple form of, I'm sorry, the like and dislike is a simple form of word analysis. Do you see how the reasons after because are a simple form of articulation?
What? Say that again.
The reasons after because are a simple form of articulation.
Okay. Okay.
So what we're doing with those two is we're now pulling it up here where we have massive neural activity, 2.5 times. So give me a simple reason of why a 10-year-old girl would like swimming.
Mm. It's like giving her a reason of why a 10-year-old girl will like swimming.
Right. Just because we're using Sarah because just as that's who I like to use as an example. But give me a reason of why a 10-year-old girl would like swimming.
Well, I can go this much because I have a pool in my backyard and I have a 13-year-old that likes swimming. She likes
Okay.
to go in the water. She likes to feel like she's floating on air, even though it's water. She just likes to be in, she likes to play and just be, I don't want to say lifeless, like floating in the water.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can just say Sarah likes swimming because she likes floating in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you see how we have a whole mess of misspelled words?
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to fix. First thing we do is we ask Sarah to read what she wrote out loud, and does it sound generally correct? We don't care about spelling because that gets rid of all the horrendous horrendous grammar mistakes. Now you're left with maybe some minor and some intermediate ones. Teachers are really good at fixing that. They have trouble with the atrociously bad stuff, which we've just eliminated because it doesn't sound correct, fix it. Then we tell Sarah, drop a period, and if there's any misspelled words, she has to come back and retype the entire sentence until everything is correct. So what happens? She says, I'm not going to make that mistake again. And she keeps making it again and again and again, somewhere between 3 and 13 times. And each time she says, I'm not going to make that mistake. And she concentrates harder and harder and harder. And that's where the magic happens. That's where this part of the brain starts to organize itself. And she eventually gets it correct. Then you make sure everything is spelled correctly for the first 10 likes and the next 10 dislikes. All right. Then we do reason one and reason two. I'll make sure everything's spelled correctly for 10 likes and 10 dislikes. Then reason one, reason two, and reason three for 10 likes and 10 dislikes. At the end of that, Sarah's now gone from writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words to writing decent grammar and correct spelling 3-reason sentences. And her reading has also improved because if you can write it, you can read it. If you can write it, you can read it. All right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So let me say this because I don't know. I want to try to wrap this, and I want to be very honest with you. I want to try to wrap this to where it will be good for for my listeners for the season of self-love. Where it will be aligned with the audience. You understand? And so when we're talking about shame and boundaries, is how can we make this fit into the dyslexia, or how can we take that to where it's shame? Because how we came in, and even the question that I asked you that you did not answer, but you went straight into the logic form or what dyslexia was and how to break it down. But how can we get that to where it coming from the self-love point of it, or breaking the shame of it? How can we break that?
That's the next step. I
Right.
wanted to give them that step because what that does is that gives them how to actually use something immediately. Okay. The next step is how do we get these kids who are feeling shamed, and to make sure that they feel like they've taken control again, is essentially what I think you're asking, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and I'm just going to say
Mm-hmm.
this right here, because when I first asked you the question, and the thing is
Mm-hmm.
that there was no answer. There was no answer back. It was like a whole jump ship, and I was like, okay, we're going to go move from here, and I'm just going to follow him as he goes, with this. And then
Mm-hmm.
I said, is there in I'm being honest with when dyslexia, is it just for reading, or is it also when you're speaking as well? Meaning that, did you purposely jump my question, or did you not understand my question?
The reason I gave it there is because when I'm dealing with audiences, the parents want to know, because it's kind of like a bleeding wound with their kids. They want a solution to deal with the biggest issue that they had. So that's where I start off with that one. The next step is, how do we give these kids the power so that they feel like they're going from being just ignored in school, feeling like, as a lot of the kids I work with say, I feel stupid. How do we make them feel smart and be able to do things that they're really interested in, and just pull them back? That's the next step. But I
Right.
wanted to frame that so that the problem in my industry is that there is so much garbage out there that I wanted to let the parents know initially. Here's the hard science. Here's how we solve the biggest problem you're running into. And you can apply this immediately to solve these huge problems. And then the next step is, how do we bring, now that we've got the Band-Aid on there, how can we take these kids from feeling like they just don't want to do anything to actually empowering them? And that's the next step in the system.
Right. So let me say this, because I understand what you're saying there,
Mm-hmm.
but every audience is not the same. You understand what I'm saying? Every
Mm-hmm.
audience is not the same. And so when the language that is spoken in this audience, they usually want to know who you are first,
Mm-hmm.
and where you coming from first. Because I want them to know who you are and what
Mm-hmm.
you coming from first, before we even know who
Mm-hmm.
that or what your technique is. And I know
Mm-hmm.
this episode is going to be so different, because it's like they're seeing us on two different ends of the coin on this one,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to know about dyslexia, but I want to know
Mm-hmm.
in a form to where it's about self-love, to where it's the
Mm-hmm.
healing process of it after, what I'm saying,
Yes.
during and after it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And
Yes.
so even though we know that that person has the dyslexia, what is the shame that has to be removed from it? So when I ask you the question about the boundaries of it, a lot of people don't understand what that is. Especially when it comes, a lot of people are ashamed of what they go through. And a lot of people want to know what that pain point is, because they want to be able to recognize what that is first, then give me a solution, because people want to be able to bring down that trust so they can know, okay, now I can sit
Mm-hmm.
and I can listen to him before it's bombarded on this.
Yeah. That's why I was like, let
Yeah.
me ask how I got started. Then I go into this, and then I deal with what you're talking about. Because when you have parents that have kids with dyslexia, the main thing, they are so incredibly skeptical because they've tried everything and it's garbage. And the only thing that works is meant for millionaires. All right. So that's why I suggested, ask me how I got started, and that establishes all of that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's typical.
Okay, Russell. Okay, Russell. I'm gonna have to come to your podcast, and I'm gonna have to see how that works.
I don't do podcasts. I'm dyslexic. It's too
Oh,
much work. I just show up as I'm the number. I just do more podcast guesting than anybody else on Podmatch.
oh, okay.
I do about 1 or 2 podcasts a day.
Okay. 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 But what I'm saying is here is that when you go to the different podcast things,
Mhm.
they're all different. They all are not the same.
Yes.
You
Oh no,
understand?
they are all different, but I understand what you're trying to do. So when you started with that line of questioning, I was like, okay, this is what the answer. That's why again I said if you just start how I got into this, that answers the question of who I am and what the general idea is and why. It grounds it in a story. Then this is the part where they actually learn something because they want that. But how do we then go and turn these kids and give them their superpower, give them their confidence back? That's the next 2 steps after what I just told you. All right. So that's generally, as I found, the best way to communicate it because I have done other podcasts that are not exactly like yours, but have the same general belief, and it went very well. But that's the framework that usually works well. I get what you're saying. I'm just trying to convey an extraordinarily complex amount of information in a short amount of space that will be entertaining and useful to people.
Okay, well, this is what we're gonna do right now. So what I
Mhm.
want you to do is I want you to share what you have in your book right now. And I want you to share the information that you have to give to
Okay.
the audience right now that
Okay.
will help them along the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can go ahead and do so right now, even though this month is supposed to that I wanted it to be about boundaries, what is the one of the most important things that you want the parents to know when they have children with dyslexia and how to get them over the shame?
The first thing that you need to understand is when you're dealing with a typical kid, you can't get them to do anything. That was one of the biggest problems that I found out. So when you're looking at dealing, because the first process, what I did is I took a bunch of highly motivated dyslexic high school juniors and seniors with middle school writing skills, and in a public school funded by the New York State Senate, a year later, they're writing average of entering grad students. But they were so incredibly motivated. But when I presented this in New York City in 2006, they asked, will this work with typical students? And I said, no. I said, come back when you can figure it out. It took me 8 years to figure it out. Here's what I found. A better example than dyslexia is a kid with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Mm.
Teachers keep telling me they can't get the kid to do anything. I said, you can if you focus on their speciality. So when you're talking about neurodiverse kids, during the intervention period, from where they are now until they're at grade level, we have to focus on their speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. Once you do that, you have their attention. So I want to give you the story of my most successful student, and I want to let you know that I never saw this before, Casey. I will never see this again. This was one off, just showing you how important this is. Casey was interested in Theodore Roosevelt. She was in 5th grade, reading and writing at the 2nd grade level. And at the end of 5th grade, she turned 11 over the summertime. So I assigned her this little book called The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages of it. And she's reading at the 2nd grade level. Casey insisted on doing reading first instead of writing because I told her if you can write it, you can read it, but she wanted reading first. So I showed her how to do it. I said, well, you're not going to do it, but if you do, work with your mom, 10, 15 minutes a session, a couple times a week. And I thought that's what she was going to do. That's not Casey. I completely missed her. She locked herself in a room essentially for 3 hours a night for 6 months, most of the days during the summertime, going through a simple process. At the end of that time, she knew every word in this book. You could literally flip it to that page, point to a word, and she would tell you the dictionary definition. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months, and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week. That's how important the speciality is. But her mom was curious. What happens if we move to a book that she didn't like? So I assigned her a book on Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination, which she hated. And it took her about 3 months to find the information that I was looking for. And at that point, this is why I'm spending so much time on this. I said, Casey, what happened with your motivation when you went from a book that you loved to the one you couldn't stand? And she said it dropped about 50%. With a typical student, you're down 75 to 90%. So let's look what happens during the school day. When you have a typical student in an English class, you're going to do a couple of books, 5, 10 books, 10 books a year, whatever the number is. And they're almost certainly going to be outside the dyslexics or ADD or ADHD kids' speciality. So now their motivation is down 75 to 90%. And you wonder why you can't get things to work. It's because they are completely disengaged. And the teachers say, well, we'll accommodate you. We will give you some accommodations to get over this. And it just doesn't work. And you're falling back year in, year out. So what we need to do is to step back and focus on the kids' speciality during the intervention period. Now they're laser focused. But if you ask a dyslexic, in your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we have to do is to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me give you an example. If you were told to go, if you were back in high school, let's say Bill Gates paid you $100,000 to go and answer this question. What effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the American 1960 civil rights movement? You know just what to do. You can just go and start working on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it's big picture that eventually gets down to the details. But for a dyslexic, because we have ideas flying around the front part of our head like crazy with little to no organization, it's like grabbing fog. It doesn't work. So what we have to do is start off at a very specific point and then go out. We ask what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech. So we go to his biography, we find the answer. Then what we do is we write that out. That answer gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which gives us a question, which gives us an answer. That forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So the system is very simple. During an intervention period only, we focus on the kid's speciality. We go from the specific to the general, and we use word analysis followed by articulation. How effective is this? Parents never wanted to tell their story, the hundreds that I've worked with. But on December 27th of 2024, I met Kimberly from Facebook. She said, you could use me and my son Reed. Kimberly is a very religious homeschooling mom with some college. She successfully taught Reed's brothers and sisters to read properly with standard measures, but she failed miserably with Reed, and she felt really bad about it. She just had the state of Ohio test him. Reed was 10 years old in fifth grade, reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile. He loved Wolverine from X-Men, so that's what we use with graphic novels. She worked with Reed for about an hour and a half a week for the rest of the school year, 5.5, 6 months. I worked with her for about half an hour a week. I'm not going to tell you the results at the end because over the summertime, Reed's friends said, we want you in public school to be with us socially, for classes, for lunch. So at the beginning of August, about 8.5 months after I started working with her, he was tested in a public school. If this was January, he would have been placed in special ed, away from his friends, miserable. But he had an increase. His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th. His writing went from the 4th percentile to the 65th. Grammar jumped to the 97th percentile. Now that's testing in a public school. What's happened last semester? Reed's been getting A's and B's mainly in gen ed classes. He's with his friends. Kimberly did what every parent dreamed of, and she did it so much faster than the private dyslexic schools. And she did it herself. She literally taught him over 7 times faster than what the public schools could have. That's how powerful this is if you apply it to your kids. It just solves it. And then once they're at grade level, yes, the kids rebel when they have to do things that they don't want to do. But as parents and teachers stand firm, it's like they can't move the wall and they just start accepting it. That's the power of getting these kids out of everything and just being kids again.
Mm. So let me ask you this, Russell. I see the love that you have for it, and I understand why, because you yourself had dyslexia, and
Mhm.
you come out on the end of it, and it's been just such a great love for you. When did you say this is it? This is when I'm going to start creating this program or this book for it. When did you say I have to do this?
Well, it happened in the late 90s. I
Hmm.
applied to the New York State Assembly internship program because I wanted to know how laws were created, not a class I wanted to know. So I show up and I say, I have a first grade reading and writing level ability. And the director freaked out and said, this can't work.
Hmm.
So he literally because back then how it worked is you had the elected official, you had the chief of staff, who was an intern the year before or a year or two before, and the intern. And that's it to run the office for the session. So they went to the speaker's office. And the speaker's office said, you have to accommodate this kid. We're not sending him away because he's dyslexic. So they sent me over to the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office in the Capitol, where they had 3 administrative assistants, and it was a grad level internship because they had no idea what to do with me. Went great. I gave, for my presentation, instead of a 30-page paper, it was a very standard accommodation. I gave a very long, hours-long presentation. At the end, they recommended 15 credits of A minus for 15 credits. So then it goes back to the flagship campus of the State University of New York system at Buffalo in the political science department. They looked at the A minus and the accommodations, which were extraordinary, and said, we don't like the accommodations the state government came up with. So we're lowering your grade from an A minus. Guess what they lowered it to?
A,
No,
a
an
B.
F. They failed me.
Oh.
And at that point, I said, I am done with this discrimination. I am done. I was in the Majority Leaders Program at Council's office. I was there nights, weekends. I had all these opportunities that none of the other interns had because I was treated like a grad student. I gave up all of that to solve dyslexia. So I went to my professors and I said, where do I get to be forced to learn to read and write in grad school? And they said, well, if you like political science, the answer is easy. They're kind of joking, law school. So I went to law school with a first grade reading and writing ability, and they read and write more than anybody. I forced myself to learn very rapidly. Second day of contracts, the professor called on me. What they do in law school is they use the Socratic method. If you don't know the answer, which nobody does, they just browbeat you until you eventually adopt. That didn't happen to me. I responded not as a student, but as the professor's equal. He went after me 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I couldn't beat him. He couldn't beat me. He said at the end, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. So I learned how to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I went to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my dyslexia research project, which they don't do. After years of working with the state education department, I finally got funding from the New York State Senate. We took a bunch of highly educated dyslexic juniors and seniors who were highly motivated, highly intelligent. And these are the kids I wanted to not go through what I went through. They had middle school writing skills, one class period a day for the school year. They increased from the 0 percentile for most of them on the graduate records exam analytical writing assessment to the 30th to 70th percentile. All of them graduated from college with GPAs between 2.5 to 3.6. This cost New York State taxpayers less than $900 compared to the best dyslexic college at the time, Landmark College, which is a transfer college. You're going there to transfer to a 4-year school. We were 3 times more successful for less than 1% of the cost. And that's how I got started doing what I'm doing.
So that's why you got your chest out like that. Okay. 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 Okay, so let me ask you this, because I do get a little personal when I do ask
Mhm.
them, the questions. So when preparing for interviews and knowing that you have dyslexia, even though you can read, you kind of prepare for these, and so you kind of have things set up the way that
Mhm.
you want to, kind of go through an interview with things, because it's kind of prepare. I'm trying to find the right words, because you had said something earlier about with dyslexia. Right now, I have like brain fogs because I'm going through perimenopause. So it's like even when I'm
Mhm.
thinking, sometimes I'm like this. So I knew what you meant when you were talking about you have a thought here, and sometimes it's like it you know kind of wacky here. And I just
Mhm.
been going through that probably within the past 8 months,
Mhm.
been going through that. So I know exactly what you mean. And so you coming in here already prepared, like, okay, this is the questions that I need for you to ask me right here, because I've already had that prepared and ready to go, prepare. So is that what you do to help you to better be able to explain what you need to explain and get to the point?
Yes.
Okay.
The big issue is when you're dealing with dyslexia.
Hmm.
What you're feeling right now, let me ask you a question. Let's just this is kind of like what I do with dyslexics, but you're kind of the research from dyslexia helps so many other people.
Hmm.
All right. So I want you to think about, tell me your speciality. What's your area of extreme interest and ability? What are you just darn good at and you just love doing it? What's one thing?
For me, I love empowering. Well, my thing is I empower people to find their self-love within themselves.
Okay. So when you're thinking about empowering people through self love inside themselves, do you find you have ideas flying around your head at light speed? Key question, but with little to no organization.
Now,
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 okay.
now the
So,
past 6 months.
so what you're going through is essentially that is what dyslexia is.
Yeah,
That is what ADD and ADHD is, in essence, what
yeah.
it is. So
Hmm.
now you're beginning to feel how we've been our entire life. So I want you to think back when you were in school. If you
Hmm.
did two things, if you planned your studying properly, efficiently, and you did a lot of it, and number two, you worked really freaking hard, you did well in school to freaking awesome. Right? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. Hmm.
If you did those two things. Now, if you're a dyslexic or ADD or ADHD, that crazy flying around your head stuff, they could say, we're going to do, let's say you're in college, you're taking 15 credits. I'm dyslexic. I'm going to take one, and
Hmm.
I'm going to work longer than you are on year 5 for 15 credits. And I just work, but I have that chaos.
Yeah.
I'm still going to do worse than you.
No,
All
I would.
right.
Yeah.
So, what I described to you with that process is once we get that initial fix, all right, we can go back and apply it and be successful in just about everything.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a complete and perfect solution,
Yeah.
but it's enough to get you through college with decent grades.
Yeah. No, I understand it totally, and I applaud you. That's why I said when
Mhm.
even you explaining exactly where and I like to hear that in the beginning. I do. I'm just sorry. I do. I just like to hear that in the
Mhm.
beginning, that hero story in the beginning. Um, but I love to hear that because now I see where it comes from. I see where your chest is out and why it's out like that and why there's so much passion and love for it, because if you have done all of that work, because even me at 6 months going, and I know how organized that I was. I can write scripts. I used to can do so many different things and can
Mhm.
just at the top of a dime I can read and write and just quote things from just anything, and now I can't. So I can understand with that this 1 6 months right now that I'm going through, in the way that you explained it earlier, I'm like, wow, like I get it.
That's
And when I asked you,
yeah.
how that feel, I get it. And then I was like, okay,
Mhm.
so he came in like organized with it, and me asking him that question, that's what he was like, well, no, we have to No, we have to jump here first because there's an order that I need to do so it can make sense for me right now. And so I'm going to say this right now. And while you were talking, all I kept saying to my head is you have to abide by your 4 agreements, Nyomi. You have to, and my audience know that I will check myself in a minute. You have to apply your 4 agreements to yourself. And with my 4 agreements, it means to use my words impeccably. It means that do not take things personally first. Do not assume anything and do your best, no more, no less. And so I could not assume anything or how you felt about me or any type of way. Nothing. And I could not take it personally on what you were doing or how you were doing, but I had to make it to make sense to where it was aligned to what we're doing here at the Season of Self-Love, not only for you and I, but also for my listeners too. Because I do have parents. I don't know if they have dyslexia kids, but I also have those that's out here that are probably going through the same thing that I'm going to, whether it's brain fog, whether it's dementia, my mom has dementia, or whatever it is, but also are searching for something to find that they can resonate with you with, that can be a part of what self-love and shame is. Does that make sense? And
Yeah,
so,
it makes exactly sense. And what you see here is the conflict with dyslexics who are generally just scatterbrained and want to do things certain ways. And you're having a very specific idea. And we just had a mismatch of how we and that level of frustration between neurodiverse and I'm just going to call it normal people, because our brains are exactly opposite. Happens all the time. Here's just the hope I want to tell your audience. When you're neurodiverse and then you get to grad school, it's freaking unfair as heck, because we walk in as a dyslexic, we walk into grad school and we own that place day one or soon thereafter, because all they care about is, can you contribute to this? So the book that I use to help with this is called The Craft of Research. It was designed to help PhD students help do their doctoral dissertations. All right. I'm now expanding that on to gen ed kids. One of the students that I'm working with, let's just call him Bob because I can't use his name right now. He's the son of a podcaster. He's in the 99th percentile in math and science. He wants to work at NASA with a PhD to terraform Mars. So I gave him just an initial history of Mars at the 9th grade reading level and the 12th grade cognitive level. And he's 10 and he's flying through it. Now I found a spot that he could actually use to publish something that you're not even going to consider until at the earliest last 2 years of college. And we're starting a project now to try to help get him published in the next 4 or 5 years. And he's 10. That happens, even if it's 17, 18, that'll set him up for the rest of his life to be successful. All right. And this is what I teach dyslexic students. It has now moved over into your A+ super kids.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's beautiful work that you're doing, Russell. It really is. That is beautiful work that you're doing. And I truly do. I applaud you. I applaud the work that you're doing. I applaud the courage that it took to even sit in that moment, because I know it was hard. I know it was hard.
When I was sitting down in that law class and he came at me, everything just focused like what you used to have until after you get through what you're going through and then it comes back. That happened for the first time in my life. And I could just see where he was. I knew exactly where he was going. Nobody had ever heard of that. And then he said, "You're going to be a brilliant attorney." And I said, "No way," because I literally can't keep up with the reading and writing. Now, you might find interesting. One of the most celebrated attorneys in New York City is an African-American dyslexic woman. And she's brilliant. But her solution to reading, because she said, I have to intake information rapidly or I can't work in this field. She listens to recordings at literally 5 times the rate. She's at 500-600 words a minute, sounding like a chipmunk. And she'll just take it in and they use talk to text to get things out, and she has a whole thing set up, and she's brilliant. And I'm like, I can't do that because she does this 12, 14 hours a day. She's just not an attorney. She goes and she helps, with immigration issues, with helping the poor, helping and she goes in and she slams her opponents. I'm not talking about smacking them around and kind of winning. I'm talking she goes in there and dominates. And I'm like, I just can't do what you do. It's too much. But that's how it's really, really unfair once you get there.
Yeah.
Once you're in grad school. So what I try to tell people is if you think about doing intellectual work, go to a grad program. Once you get there, you will dominate. And for the rest of you, the second student I worked with, his name was Adam, 19-year-old senior reading at the 7th grade level, got his writing up to the 70th percentile. He went to college for a while, then he dropped out and became in the boiler making union. Like the big school districts, how they have that thing to heat everything?
Yeah.
They pulled him off a vacation, and he came in, and he worked on a project. He was there for a day and a half before he figured it out. He said, sorry it took me so long. They're under contract to do it for X amount of dollars, and they couldn't figure it out for a month. They're bleeding money, like real money. All right. And he's figured it out in a day and a half. So if you're a head and hands guy, go to a community college, get your associate's degree in like plumbing, electrician, car repair, whatever, and you will be brilliant at it. That's the advantage of being dyslexic, because we are just such specialists.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, you know what, Russell, we are out of time right now. But what I want you to do before you leave here is I want you to tell our listeners where can they connect with you at, where they can learn more about your shame-free learning and all that you have on Dyslexia, given the website, your social media, your resources. Let it rip. Go ahead.
Best thing to do is just go to dyslexiaclasses.com with an S, dyslexia classes plural, with an S, dyslexia classes. There's a button there that says download free report. Just click on that, answer 3 questions, get your report, then set up a time to speak with me. And for a half an hour, it doesn't cost anything. I can tell your kids what their speciality is, find their book and their audio book, and show them how their brains actually work, then help you get you started. For most people, we're just about ready to launch our online coaching program on a platform called School, SKOOL.com. It's kind of like a learning platform with Facebook, and we're pricing it at $147 a month, but we're having a weekly webinar with Angela, who's a certified elementary school teacher, who's bringing her son, August, who's 9, through this process. All right. She's a homeschooling mom, and she's there every week for an hour and a half to answer your questions. And my competition to do something similar, that's $500 to $1,000 a month. We're just not sending you a curriculum. We're there to walk you through this step by step until you succeed.
Beautiful. And I want to just make this clear. I'm going to ask you this question. You just work with children, right? Do you work with adults?
We train adults to teach their kids. We also do work with adults. Currently, I'm working with adults all the way up to their PhD projects, to kids that are getting ready to go out and get a real job out of college, but they don't know how to be successful. And if you know the craft of research, you can do AI extremely well. So we work on all the way through all ages. Here's the thing: the older you are, the quicker you pick this up. Completely the opposite of the traditional millionaires approach. So I'll have kids that'll do in a week what it's taking August, who's 9, to do in 4.5 months.
Beautiful. I have one more question.
Sure.
Since AI is happening right now, how is that with working with AI with dyslexia? Is it easier?
Oh, it was made for us.
Okay.
So what you need to understand is I teach the craft of research, which has sold 1 million copies since it came. Context, problem, solution. My kids know more about how to write and do advanced research as high school seniors than most grad students. And I'm not joking about that, because I combined overcoming dyslexia with that book to make it usable. And if you know the craft of research, you know how to come up with a problem statement, which means here's something actually worth solving, and then how to do an innovative solution so it actually happens. All right. And if you know nothing about AI, I had a client who went into the workforce, hated AI. started his job. Within a matter of weeks, he's not only an expert at AI, because now you're not actually doing the work with AI anymore. You're guiding the agents to do it. He's teaching his peers how to do AI, because you'd go in and say, well, I couldn't figure out context, so I tried all these things, and this is what worked. Then I did the problem statement, then I did the solution, and here's all the things that work. And they're like, what's context? What's problem statement? What do you mean? He's like, I've been doing this since high school. I started learning this in middle. What do you mean you don't know? How did you get through college? And the professors are so exasperated because they told me in 2006 they want these kids to know this before they come to college. That every time I'm on a podcast, which is now over 180 with professors, they always tell me they should know this before they come to college. And not the best private schools in New York City don't go near this content because it's too hard. And I start teaching this to 9-year-olds.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, you know what? We started off rocky, but we ended off with a bang. But thank you again, Russell. It's been a good show. I really love the stories, and you are really doing amazing things. You really are doing amazing things, and thank you. Our listeners out here, just to learn more, make sure you guys connect with Russell, learn from his work, and, start breaking those cycles of shame. And again, Russell, thank you so much for just being here with us today and for your work that you're doing out there in the world, because this is a reclaiming unashamed, and that's what it's all about. All right, my beautiful people, I hope that this conversation, that it gave you permission to truly be yourself and to honor the differences. You saw it right here in real raw and uncut right here. So stop apologizing of who you are and just be who you are. Because here's what I need you to know. Your differences are not a deficit. Your learning style, your journey, your story is not something to be ashamed of. It is your unique gift, and it's your voice. It's your voice, and you don't want it to be silenced. The world needs to hear you. Your voice matters. So again, have an amazing, amazing week. Have a good one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today on this journey of intentional healing. I hope that this conversation has filled your cup and reminded you of the beautiful and worthy person that you are. I want you to remember, healing isn't about rushing. It's about showing up for yourself with love and intention, one day at a time. So I'll see you back here Monday and Wednesday for another episode of the Season of Healing Intentionally, right here on the Season of Self-Love podcast. So until then, keep choosing you, and visit us at the seasonofselflovepodcast.com for show notes and resources. And remember to connect with me on Instagram at The Real Nyomi Banks. This has been brought to you by Ask Nyomi and Elevate Me Self-Discovery, because your healing matters. You are loved, you are worthy, and you are exactly where you need to be. Take care.